I think one of my favorite moments was on trauma call as a fourth year, having to do a thoracotomy in a longer section while attending to another portion of the case. Having the confidence to walk a junior through that case just kind of made me realize and appreciate how much I had learned over the course of the past few years.
And this is when I was a PGY2 on the ACS service as the trauma consult resident. My buddy from medical school, Vince Chang, was the PGY2 non-trauma consult resident on that same team. And we also had a senior resident that we both got along with very well. That was the first time the two of us as former medical school classmates had worked together on the same team, and probably will be the only time during residency. But the two of us, along with the senior resident, just kind of functioned as a cohesive, all-purpose surgical consult unit for that 5 or 6 weeks we were on service together. We were just kind of stomping around the hospital, seeing any and all surgical consults. Didn't matter if it was trauma or non-trauma. We just kind of figured everything out together. We operated together, learned a lot, struggled together as well at times. So that was just a great experience.
My best day and favorite moment of my entire residency, believe it or not, was after a 24-hour stretch in my transplant elective at the beginning of my chief year. I started the day flying to Las Vegas. We did the procurement there. We flew back to LA. We did the back table. Me and the transplant fellow at the time, and pretty much I did the entire transplant with the fellow while the attending pretty much just supervised. Man, I was so pumped. I wanted to keep going for another transplant.
Ooh, I think that there are so many favorite moments here when you're a resident, but one that always will stick out in my mind is a day on trauma call where we were called to the emergency department for a patient that had gotten shot in the chest. And the patient had arrested after he arrived, and so like we normally do, we performed the resuscitative thoracotomy, and we saw that there was blood in the pericardium. And so I opened the pericardium, and there was active bleeding from a gunshot wound to the right ventricle. And so Dr. Dimitriades, who was my attending that day, handed me the suture and said, "Put a suture in the heart." And so, probably handshaking, I put a stitch in the heart, and we saved that patient. When we went up to the OR, we were finishing and closing the chest, and our circulator nurse asked us which PICU bed, which pediatric ICU bed did we want to go to. And I asked, why were we going to the pediatric ICU? And turns out the patient was a 13-year-old boy. And so saving that person's life was all the more meaningful for us, and that patient actually left the hospital. And so that was probably my best moment.
But after 6 years in this program, it's kind of hard to come up with a single favorite moment, especially when you're surrounded by such incredible people.